Hey everyone, Bronco here. My best friend Jason and I are working on a game called Block Miner, a puzzle game about manipulating and matching blocks to create chain reactions. No, this is not part 2 of the sound design for Block Miner. I'm still working on that as hard as I can, and hopefully that will come out soon. For today's devlog, I'd like to focus on a brand new feature that I spent a lot of time thinking about, and thanks to Jason, he made it possible. My goal for Block Miner is to create interesting scenarios that challenge the player's approach to building chain reactions. As a developer, I have control of lots of variables, like how much space the player has, how many blocks they have to deal with, and what kind of blocks. In my playtest so far, levels that dropped a large quantity of blocks turned out to be the most difficult. And here's why. The order in which blocks are dropped is random, meaning there's a chance that the block arrangement will require little effort to produce a desirable chain reaction, and then there's an equal chance that the block arrangement is so disorderly that building anything desirable ranges from moderately difficult to near impossible. If the odds are against you, and a large quantity of blocks are dropped, it restricts how much room you have to move around, impacting how many blocks you can reach and actually work with. This sounds like a good enough challenge for the player if you consider my goal for the final game, but it makes the player feel powerless. And that's not how I want players to feel in Block Miner. I want players to feel equipped to outsmart the game.
It's just the way we're wired.
Before I can get into how I initially try to solve this problem, I need to explain how the movement in Block Miner works. Block Miner is grid-based, so every entity in the game, the player, blocks, etc., lives on a grid space. If an entity moves, they will snap to the next available grid space. It's also important to note that only one entity is allowed per grid space, making it possible for an entity to be in front of or walk through already occupied grid spaces. If you see that while playing Block Miner, it's a bug. Levels have defined boundaries to ensure that every entity stays on screen, and these boundaries are where I felt something could be done. About a year or two into Block Miner's development, I came up with a ladder block that would spawn underneath the player with the push of a button. Spawning this block would push the player up a grid space, and they could spawn as many as they wanted to as long as they stayed within the level's boundaries. As soon as the player moved to any grid space away from the ladders, they'd get removed. The ability to spawn ladders got removed, but the functionality still exists. I thought maybe ladders could be placed on the level's side boundaries, and the player could move up and down them, reaching those precious gemstones at the bottom. But there were still problems with this approach. First is that it broke the established rules for movement in Block Miner. You can't occupy a grid space that's already occupied. Second, even if you could reach the blocks below, what you're ultimately doing is shifting the blocks down a row, and you still have trouble reaching those blocks that are resting in the middle of the screen. These problems were convincing enough to not pursue the idea and go back to the drawing board. Luminous Arise is a puzzle game where everything you see on screen is synced up to a thumping soundtrack, and the objective is to build and clear matching 2x2 blocks. The mechanic of building 2x2 blocks felt fitting for Block Miner, except that it would be impossible for the player to lug one around. So what if instead of merging into one big 2x2 block, it merged and condensed into a 1x1 block, retaining the value of 4 blocks? Introducing super blocks. And to stay consistent with how important gemstone blocks are to the player, super blocks can only be created from matching gemstone blocks. Once Jason got super blocks working, I had to figure out what they looked like. When it comes to pixel art, I take a lot of inspiration from the incredible work of Phil Fish, displayed in Fez, released back in 2012. I started with the ruby variant of the super block, and once I got the look I wanted, I created the diamond and emerald variants, and then I had to create animations for every way that they could be destroyed. I gotta admit, when I played the game with super blocks for the first time, I had such a huge smile on my face. What happens a lot in matching games are happy accidents. Those moments when you move one piece to get a match and clear, and end up sparking a chain reaction of clears that you weren't really considering or were just out of sight. Those kind of happy accidents. Thanks to super blocks, those happy accidents are now possible in Block Miner. Maybe you're not paying attention when you pull a block from a stack and gravity creates a super block for you. Or you crack open a vanilla block to reveal the last gemstone you need to create a super block. It works great, and what I'm trying to figure out now is what happens when you have a 2x2 of super blocks. There's a few options currently under consideration, but only time will tell. Well, that's all I have for this devlog. If you like what you've seen here, please leave a like, and if you want to follow Jason and I on this journey to completing Block Miner, please subscribe as well. Thanks again, and see you next time.